All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, guys. It's a Sunday morning. It's 7 o'clock, and therefore it's Grace Talks time. My name is Beauty Kotela. I have the privilege, the blessing of hosting these Grace Talks basically every Sunday, and it is absolutely my joy to come before you and present some of our guests that come to inspire us for the whole week. All right. I see there's lots and lots of people that are already joining us, and I'm so grateful and thankful. And please greet, guys. Please greet. And when you do greet, you tell us where it is that you are joining us from. So, for example, Anati, always here every morning, joining us from Kimberley. Good morning, Anati. So, please, guys, please let's do the right thing here. Tell us where it is that you are joining us from. And that's the first thing that you do. You greet, you say hello. It's African to do that, all right? You say hello, and then I'm going to take the greetings just now. Second thing is you tag someone. Now, if you are here, all right, you are a young woman, I promise you I have a treat for you, all right? If you are here and you're a mother, you have young women in your life that you are mentoring, that you've given birth to, that you are teaching. I have a treat for them, so please tag them. If you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, copy the link and share it with them, because this is a Grace Talk that I really believe that they will benefit from. We will all benefit, but I think that I really had the young women in mind. So tag them, all right? Share it on your platform if you don't mind sharing. And please, if I may also ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's called Building Great Lives. Some of us are already joining us from that channel. Please, if you just hit the word subscribe, it allows me to reach many more people. So that's the second thing that you do. Tag someone, because that someone is going to be inspired today, and they're going to be charged and challenged to go out there and make a difference in their own life. So that's the second thing that we do. And yes, we share whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, and you go and subscribe. All right. Now let me just quickly take some greetings before we allow our guests to come in. We've got load shedding at 8, so we're trying to by 8 o'clock be wrapping up. So, right, Catherine joining us via YouTube. Good morning, Kathy. Thank you so much for being here. Somebody in the Facebook group. Sangena. All right. Anati, already welcomed you. Malaya is joining us from Somerset West. Thank you so much. And yes, this is what we do. Tag another person. All right. Tag another person. Good morning, Nombulelo, joining us from Kariga. Etinacha, good morning so much. Susus, good morning. I'm guessing East London today, right? I was going to say Queenstown in the house. All right. And Nandi also joining us from East London. Imont with Nani, well represented. All right. Good morning, Connie, joining us from PE. Zia Frobam joining us also from PE, I think. All right. And my friend is here from Bloemfontein, eh? I hope you guys are having a good time up there. Good morning. Swati in the house. Good morning, Nomsa. Somebody also joining us from Cape Town. All right. Good morning, Sifo. It's good to see you. It's good to have you here. All right. Greetings, guys. Greetings. Thank you so much. Kadok is in the house. Hi, Lisha. All right. I see who got killed. So I'm not going to share yet. I want. But I'm sharing Grace Talks, otherwise I'll post that. All right. Good morning, Smay. So good to have you here. So good to have you here. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. Botswana is in the house. Diala Ingapakati Endlini, and Sino joining us from PE. All right. Good morning. All right, ladies, that's the first thing that we do. We greet so that we can sort of feel a little bit welcome. All right, now let me bring our guest in for today. I'm bringing somebody who's doing amazing work. For her age, she's almost living my life. You know, that kind of person, like, you know what, she's living my life. I want this kind of life. All right, our guest for today, as I bring her on, and Nolu. Gqadu. Right. Let me not say anything else. I'm tempted to talk about that with Gqadu. Let me not. It's not about her. But those of us who know Liz from PE, and but she lives in Johannesburg and is doing amazing things for God and for the community. All right, Nolu, before I go too far, let me allow you to greet.
Molweni, good morning, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much. And I think you are nice and audible. All right. Thank you so much for joining us on Grace Talks. And like I've said, that we're just going to we will not be able to go through everything that Nolu has done and is planning to do and has been doing. But I just thought, let's take a moment and just, one, celebrate you, two, hear a lot more about what you do, perhaps as a way to inspire us, to inspire the young women, to inspire all of us, and maybe not necessarily in the field of tech where you are playing a bigger role, but just in our lives, as we live our lives, let's just pick up in my language, which you and I speak. We believe that so as we are listening to you, we are plucking our feathers that we can use to build our own nests that God has given us responsibility for. All right, but ladies, allow me, before I even allow Nolu, before we go deep into it, let me just introduce some of what she does this way. So I'll just give me a second here while I share something. Share screen, and yes, and I'm hoping that this will show. Okay, and play. Okay. I'm just going to leave this here for a moment.
The Future of Jobs report by the World Economic Forum states that 41% of current jobs in South Africa will be rendered obsolete due to automation. It also estimates that 65% of children entering primary school will find themselves in occupations that do not exist today. Yet 7 out of 10 kids have no access to technology or the internet. When we talk about automation or of automation, we often talk about it as something that's very far. But is it really that far? Is it far? When I think of kids and what we often term as the future digital workforce, I often think of the Titanic. Strange, right? Titanic was a high marvel of its time. It was way ahead in terms of technology, quite advanced. And for those who did not know, Titanic had the ability to take salt out of the ocean water and make it drinkable. Now that was a ship way ahead of its time. When Titanic sank, it was chaos. People were crying for their lives, begging for a second chance to life. During that chaos, children were saved first. If one thing was clear, even during an era of a Titanic, is that children are the future. And if children are saved first when a ship sinks, why is it not the case in technology? When we talk about automation and robotics, we are talking about something that will directly affect the kids in the future. Now, do we wait till these kids are adults or for this future to become our reality before we start exposing these kids to technology?
All right, allow me to leave it there. Allow me to leave it there. But what I was trying to show you here is the caliber of person we have on our Grace Talks this morning. The TEDx platform, I'm one that listens to a lot of the presentations there. It's got 37, I think, million subscribers. All right. And we're going to allow you, Nolu, to tell us a little bit about that as well. And how did that happen and stuff like that. But you, girlfriend, this girl from Gqadu, found yourself on that platform talking about the work that you do. That for me is very inspiring. And that's just one of the many platforms that you have presented on. And I just thought, let me share it. So for those of us who want to listen to all of that, you can just go to TEDx Talks and you will find it. Okay, now before I go on and on and on about what you do, I want us to start somewhere because all of us have a start. I don't know how far back you want to go, but let's go to the beginning as to Where did it begin for you? Where did it begin for Nolu Ngubani? Where does she come from? And how did we get to where we are today? Let's just begin there.
Cool. Thank you, Sis B. Uh, if I can reflect where it all began for me, I spent a few years of my early childhood at Digeni.
Mm,
And when we stayed at Digeni, we stayed with Ugogo. And during that time when we stayed at Digeni, Gogo used to bring home T-shirts that used to be written, "I love New York, I love London." And for me, at a very young age, I was quite curious. I love this place, I love this.
mm,
So from a very young age, I had a very strong sense of what you call this curiosity.
mm,
And I knew from a very young age that I don't exist just within the South African context. I exist, what you call this, in a global context. And I think if you will see a lot of work that I've done in my career, it's just outside what you call this, outside this little space of Joburg,
mm,
this little space of South Africa. I think I knew from a young age that what you call I've got a role to play globally.
mm,
So I then moved we then moved from Etikeni to staying what you call this in Bisho and King Williamstown. We moved what you call this from Bisho to Ebai, and it was just life what you call this going on what you call this for itself, but nothing what you call this nothing out of the ordinary. But even though one can say what you call this life was going on, it was nothing out of the ordinary. But I think also through that time, what you call this, up until the point I needed to choose a career, I could see the hand of what you call this. I could see the hand of God, what you call this, in my life. And sometimes there are certain things that happen, and you what you call this, you can't even explain what you call this, how God made that happen. So I needed to choose a career, I think, when I was in grade 12.
mm,
And I've always been quite curious in nature. And at that time, I strongly believed that I wanted to be a geologist.
mm,
And that's what actually my entire high school life, that's what you call this, I was working towards. And when I got to grade 12, I got accepted at Rhodes University for a BSc in geology. And for whatever reason, what you call this, my dad didn't think what you call this, it would be the perfect fit for me.
mm,
And what you call gently, he talked me out of it. And IT then became what you call this a second option.
mm,
And I think at that time, hence, I said earlier, you see the hand of God, like I was studying for this qualification, but what you call this, you have no idea of even what you call this, the type of work that you'll get to do when you finish or when
mm,
you graduate. And I think largely at that time, we had very limited what you call this role models in the space where I could
mm,
say what you call this, I know this person, she's in the tech space, and this is what
mm,
you call this, what she knows. And everyone I basically knew who's in the tech space was male. Like at the time, I knew of no female who was in
mm,
that space. But also, I think the reason why tech became a second option is because of my curiosity. I knew computers have the potential to solve problems.
mm,
And what you call this, that's why I wanted to go into that space as a second option.
mm,
I, th- I then started working at Bai. When I started working what you call this at Vodacom. It was nothing fancy, just what you call this a very straightforward what you call this support role or a call center job. At the time,
mm,
Bukala, what you call this phone as a modem, internet, email. That's when we're starting into that space.
mm,
And I got that role, what you call this, to support the technologies that were being used. I think I worked for 8 months. And I worked there like from day one. I walked into that space and I was like, I'm not gonna stay here for more than a year. And I got my second role in Cape Town when my parents relocated to Cape Town. It was also a support role, what you call this, at Capitec Bank at their
Mm,
help desk. Again, I walked into that role from day one, and what you call this, people will associate that with a lack of gratitude, for a better word, because you pray for something and you pray to God about ucela umsebenzi. Then
mm,
you get what you call this, you get into the working environment, and
mm.
from the first day you're like, yo, andizohlala.
Yeah,
Then it what you call this, it sort of contradicts, but you prayed for this, but
yeah.
awuzohlala. So
Mm,
I got there, I was like, ah, I'm not gonna stay. It's just gonna be a year.
mm,
Again, and that it was a year. I got my next opportunity also within the ICT space at UCT. I think a
mm,
year later, that was 2010.
mm,
Uh, I got there, I was like, it's also giving me some, and the graphic in that space where
mm,
in my career I feel bana I'm being fulfilled, or I can say, Guti, I want to
mm,
stay for long. I
mm,
was like, andizohlala, but before I say andizohlala, there's a couple of things I need to achieve. There's a couple of goals I wanted to achieve for myself,
mm,
and those were academic goals. I said, let me use this time while I work at a university just to progress those.
mm.
And
Yeah.
again, as soon as what you call this, I was done, what you call this, with those goals that I had set for myself. I think as soon as I was done with my honors from
Mm,
UCT, I was like, okay, now I want to go experience life, like what it's like, what you call this, on the world out there. Uh, and then I left for corporate. I left for a small financial planning house, which was later bought by Old Mutual.
okay.
And when I was there, I was like, iyaqala udibana, but what you call this, it's still not,
Katiki.
yes, it's still not
Mm,
entirely it. And just before I left UCT, I I got to discover that I've got a passion for mentoring, particularly mentoring women.
mm,
I then founded an organization which was called at the time Inside Out Mentors,
mm,
and it used to mentor young girls at Kailicha. Then I was like, I actually like this, like in as much
mm,
as I'm in tech, but
mm.
this it
I'm coming
gives me
closer.
a sense of fulfillment that I'm not necessarily getting, what you call this, in my full-time role.
Mm,
Then I did it part-time while I worked for Old Mutual, had an entire team of volunteers and all of that. And on weekends we would go to Kylie try and just give back. Then and I had fun. Like I grew professionally when I worked for Old Mutual. I did various roles from being a business analyst to being a project manager in the tech space. And
mm,
I think in a way one would say, what you call this, I was flourishing in a way, but I would get home and kube Kolando. I don't want to call it. I don't want to say it's being empty, but you
mm,
get home, you like, what you call this. I haven't really fulfilled, what you call this, my purpose, or
mm,
what I want to fulfill. Yes, I do this. Yes, I love
mm.
this. I enjoy this, but
Something
oh, that
missing.
yes, there's that
Yeah.
missing puzzle.
Mm.
Then I,
That holy
then I,
discomfort, we call it here. Like that holy discomfort. There's something that's uncomfortable, but it's
yes.
yeah. Mm,
So then I moved, what you call this, to Joburg in 2016.
mm,
And when I moved to Joburg, I'm like, oh, my initiative, my kids, a Kylie child with the inside out. How's that gonna work out now that I'm in Joburg? And I'm like, I can't even attempt to try something similar because that's what I thought at the time, because there's a
mm,
language barrier. Like, how am I even gonna, what you call
mm,
this, penetrate, what you call this, the townships of
mm,
Johannesburg if we're
mm,
speaking different languages? So then I what you continued to be, or what you call this, on a search. So I think a bulk of what you call this, my journey and my career
mm,
journey, has just has just been me searching for what is it, what you call this, that I am called to do.
Yeah.
So then I, what you call this, got involved in a couple of initiatives similar as well outside work, some similar mentorship programs. Then as I was working, what you call this, as I was working, I was like, there's a couple of things that make me uncomfortable about the space that I'm in.
Mm,
And what you call this, some of the things that used to make me uncomfortable about the space that I'm in would often be the fact that I would often be the only person of color in a room,
mm,
and what you call this, often be the only female. And I would say to myself, surely this is not right. I cannot be the only voice, what you call this,
mm,
for Black people. I cannot be the
mm,
only voice, what you call this, for women when it comes to building tech related solutions.
mm,
It gave me a lot of discomfort. I think it got worse when I worked for Sesfin Bank here in Joburg. I was a project manager at the time, and we needed to get developers for a system we were building, and we couldn't find the skills in the country. We needed
mm,
to bring those from countries like India just to help us with the project. Then the light bulb of Kodungwana came through. Then
yeah.
I said, if we introduce kids to coding, what you call this, at a very young age, then surely we can potentially solve for this problem in the future.
Mm,
We may not solve for it now. And ever since 2019, I've, what you call this, basically been committed to that cause of saying, what you call this, let's build this digital culture for young
mm,
kids.
mm,
And I was quite comfortable doing it part time, as a, what you call this, what we would often term a side gig,
mm,
till 2022. I got, what you call this, pushed out of my comfort zone,
mm,
where
mm,
2022 I went to go bury my gran in the Eastern Cape. And on the first day when I came back from the funeral, I came back to a meeting request, and the meeting request said, what you call this, IT restructuring. And even before I went into that meeting, my intuition said, something is cooking.
mm,
I
yeah.
got
Mm,
I got into that meeting, and what you call this, it was a company going through retrenchments, and what you call this,
mm,
and my role was identified as, what you call this, as one of the roles that were, what you're going to get retrenched.
mm,
And it was a very dark time for me, because all I've known for the past 12 years or 11 years is to wake up and, what you call this, and go to work. Even though
okay.
I had, mm,
Yeah. Can I just interrupt you because I do want us to go to that shift because that's a big shift from corporate into what you are now doing coding one full time. But I do want us to just pick up a couple of things before the full time operations of your company. Um, One, you are an author. And here's what I want to bring out here, and maybe you can just share your thoughts
mm,
on that because IT as a space, I think you've mentioned it already, that you are often the only Black person there, especially as you go higher within the company. So not necessarily being on the factory floor, for lack of a better word. So you tend to stand out there, either only woman, only Black woman. If there will be a few of you. That space, we do not dominate that space. So we've spoken about that. But for me, what I want to pull out of this conversation is how you brought it all together. In other words, what were the challenges and what were the opportunities? What were the issues that you were dealing with? Because at this stage, because some of us wait until we finish and then start something. So Code Nwana would have remained a holy discomfort until beginning of 2023, where you've now gone into it full time, or late last year, where we've gone to. But how did you balance? How did you balance the creation of Code Nwana, which operated, and we'll talk about some of the awards that you've received just now. And not only that, because you were also a mother and a wife at some point, a professional of because those kinds of jobs are highly demanding. And there's not often no working hours there. There are working hours on paper, but just generally, there's so much more going on. So where did the courage come from? Where did the goal come from to think that as hectic as this space is, and the thing about that space, when I know there's opportunities for growth and for development, you can climb really high to a point where you do well for yourself. But that was not enough for you to do well for Nolu. But you wanted to do well for yourself. Of course, all of us want to. But there was always this thing, which we now call it the holy discomfort. You wanted to bring people along. And if I go back to the opening that you've said of your TED talk about children, bringing them along. So I'm just trying to get into your mind and your thoughts and your processes that made it possible, the sacrifices and all of that stuff, for you to be able to run that, let it continue and not die while you were still performing as a corporate professional.
Thanks, SB. So a lot of people, I think, when I was still employed, would often ask, where do you find the time? And I think time, what you call this, people can say is our biggest enemy. But I think also what you call this, from me, also time is the biggest blessing. Because in a day, you've got what you call this 24 hours, which 8 hours of that day, if you are in the employ, you are at work, and maybe 2 hours of that day is already wasted in commuting, in traffic. Then you come back, then there's still homeworks and what you call this, there is still family responsibilities that one what you call this needs to commit to. But I think for me, having mentioned earlier that there has always been that void when something is missing, and what you call this, if there's something missing, or what you call this, your soul is searching for something, it's at the early hours of the morning that what you call this, often you will struggle to sleep, and often you will continue what you call this, be in that thought process, or some would call it insomnia or whatever. But I think for me, what you call this, the entire process, what it's taught me is what you call this, to be more deliberate in terms of how I use my time. I think even beyond what you call this, being deliberate, we are allocated time in order to have discipline, and in order to what you call this, to use our time, what you call this, accordingly. And I think for me, from being influenced by my background and what you call this, and how I grew up, we've always had structure in terms of ixesha lento ethile ngoku, lixesha lento ethile. So I had goals that I had set down, what you call this, for myself. But I think most importantly, I was able to what you call this, to say, oh, okay, because even when I got into the coding space, so I think one of the biggest, or what you call this, frustrations as well for me was like, oh, okay, this is what we lack, and I would be like, but instead of complaining, when I got into the coding space, I was like, yo, all these case studies that teach kids coding are US-based case studies, for example. Like, how do we get an African perspective? So, and I think for me, one of what you call this, the greatest blessing is just being able to use my frustrations, to use that energy to elevate me into what you call this, bringing the change that I wanted to see. So I wouldn't just say, all these case studies are US-based case studies. How do we begin to teach the African child how to code? I would then say to myself, how does this look like if we were to contextualize it? Then I started writing what you call these stories of technology for kids. Then we started the process of translating those into African languages. And I think it's a very weird thing, but a lot of things that I've done are what you call this. It would often come out of frustration.
Mm,
When I'm frustrated by this, I want to change. I want to change this.
mm,
And so some people operate from the premise of being inspired. I'm
mm,
inspired to do this. So I think
mm,
for me, it's I'm frustrated by this.
mm,
Let me do this. And
mm,
I think it was just every day seeing what you call this, the contribution that I'm making, and not just locally.
mm,
It was the contribution, the potential even of that contribution to go global that kept me going. That I would
mm,
come back, what you call this, from Glencoe so exhausted, deal with the kids, do the homeworks, cook,
mm,
do all of that. And even as exhausted as I was, I would sleep or wake up. Actually, my day starts very early. Let me start there. So my
mm,
day, what you call this, typically my day at 4 or 3:30 has started.
mm, mm,
Even if I wasn't doing Code Ngwana, I'm doing what you call this work-related stuff. My day has started. I have sent
mm,
emails. I have responded to stuff. I have. By the time 8 o'clock starts, like a
mm.
bulk of stuff for the day
Has
is
been done.
done.
Mm, mm. All right. Look, I want to ask you a basic question, very, very basic question. And I'll explain why I'm asking it, but let me ask it. And then while I'm explaining, you get time to reflect on it. What is coding? What is coding? And what is its meaning in our daily lives? Now, the reason I asked that question, and you would know this better than I do, I often laugh, when we talk about the fourth industrial revolution, the 4IR, and how we as South Africa or as companies need to shift to the fourth industrial revolution. And I think to myself, there are places in Africa that have not even, they don't even know what is a computer. They are still only now receiving cell phones. They're only now getting into smartphones. They're only now getting into connectivity and being able to access basic connectivity services like internet. And there are still places which have not received that. And so I mean, it's South Africa. I think it's Africa. We have all of these countries in one. We've got the first world, we've got the second world, we've got the third world in one country. And technology is the biggest divider in all of those. And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. So Africa as a whole is behind. If we look at all of Africa, there are parts of Africa, that are amazing, like your sentence, and then there are parts of Africa that are falling behind, like villages in Limpopo, in the Eastern Cape, that are just nowhere near. And we can see this with the crisis. COVID revealed that to us. And then, of course, when you away from Africa, then there's groups of people, women, and then children. All right. Women are far behind when it comes to technology in general. So if women are behind, Black women are even more behind. And then children, of course, are also the group. And if children are behind, Black children are even far behind. I'm working with schools in the township where it's to do I laugh when they say universities, all applications are online. Just by saying that, there's a whole sector of society that you've left out, because what is an online application? Where do I go to apply? Data is expensive. Where do I find a proper computer? How do I do an online? Let's say you manage to get the child a computer, and let's say you manage to find data. How do I do an online application? Because I've never touched a computer in my life. And now it stands between me and accessing the next level of my study. So I'm talking a lot of things here. But it all begins with computer skills, coding, being able to be fluent in that space. So, for the benefit of myself, and maybe I'm the only one who needs to know this question, and the mothers here, and the young women here, and the teachers here, because tomorrow we're going to work with our young ones. Can you just take us to the very basic of what coding is and what that allows us to be able to do?
Okay. I'm going to make a very simple example. So when you opened your fridge this morning, or you warm food, what you call this, in the microwave, that's a piece of code that tells your fridge to what you call this, cool down the food. When you
Okay.
open a microwave and you press 1 minute, 2 minutes, that is a piece of code that tells it to warm it to this degree. So we are around coding. We are surrounded by coding, whether we see it, whether we don't see it. It's what you call this. It's what brings function into life and structure into some of the things that we do.
Mm, mm. That's beautiful. And then of course you took it to the next level where, and we thank God for giving you that holy discomfort of not letting you rest and just simply climb the corporate ladder, but to rather bring, in your case, to bring children along. And not only just creating code one, but writing books, because there are those that may not be in your space like you doing. And I want us now to hear a little bit about the work that you do and where you are doing it in code one. But there are those that cannot be there, but at least can access your book. So what I want to hear now is a little bit about Code Guana in terms of what you were doing. We'll get to how you started it, but what you were doing and where you were doing it and some of the results that you've perhaps seen or impact that you have seen, and then also talk about your books. Because some of us are here and Code Guana is not here yet. And but how can people get those books? Because a lot of us here are mothers, we've got children, and every child should be able to code. And I say this being married to an IT person, those are some of the conversations we have here.
So, what you call this? Your question is in terms of the work.
Yeah, in terms of the work and where you are doing it now, the Code Ngwana, your company's work.
So when I started, what you call this, just to give a little bit of context without being too long. So when I started, we started it what you call this as a company, and then what you call this, at the back of my mind, there was this whole thing helping the African child go digital. Then I said, what you call this, something said to myself, if you're saying you're helping the African child go digital, yet a bulk of the kids can't afford your services, what you call this, it sort of contradicts in a way. Then after trial and error and doing different things, we made a call to actually make it a non-profit organization in order to be able to expand what you call this more reach, to be able to take it to the kids, which we had initially said we want to target. So we are coming into the Eastern Cape soon. So, what you call this, what we're doing now is just partnering with schools, partnering with NGOs to make the services accessible. And for those kids who can pay for the services, they pay for the services, and in return, we are able to extend the work even to more kids who aren't able to pay for the services.
Okay. There's a question here before I continue. If you're able to give us maybe thoughts and advice from Kanye, say, which are the accredited places where we can take kids for coding? Because there's lots of places that offer online coding, but we never know who's credible. And the online space can be quite scary as well for many of us.
So
Any advice there?
I think quickly for me to answer that one is also we need to be mindful, why are we taking kids for coding? It's a very important question.
Yeah.
And for me, I always say, like, at Konwana, or why what you call this, I teach kids coding, is so that kids are able to solve problems in the future digitally. So at the core of what you call this coding is what you call this is problem solving. And if you go a step below that, what you call this coding is built on the fundamentals of what you call this computational thinking, which is how computers think. I mean, I'm getting to answer the question just now. So in computational thinking, you will have concepts such as decomposition, which you do in maths. So kids who do coding also have proven to have increased what you call this performance in maths, because it does complement in a way. So my advice is, when you're looking for a coding provider, don't just look at what you call this at yes, we teach coding, but what are the fundamental skills that you are teaching the kids besides the syntax? Syntax is the actual code in itself. Once the kids have got the right building blocks, syntax you can always teach. So I think what is important, and not just only in coding, for us as parents, any extracurricular stuff or anything we decide to sign up our kids to, we interrogate, okay, I'm sending, for example, Peanut to ballet, but what skill, what you call this, below that is she getting? Is it self-discipline? Is it all of this? So I think it's for a parent to do homework and say this is the provider, this is what they stand for, be
mm,
what you call this below coding, because coding is just what you call this a product, but below that there are
mm,
key skills that kids need to learn, and it
mm.
goes a little bit deeper than that.
Yeah. So to do a bit more homework than what's on the surface.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Now I want us then to go back to last year. So for the longest of time, and I really, really I admire you. I take my hat off you for having been able to manage the two, to run, to grow, almost expand Code Ngwana while working full time as a professional and as a mother, and at some point being being a daughter of somebody, having all these other responsibilities. In fact, if I look at the awards that you have won with Code One, and we're going to talk about the awards just now, most of them have come while you were also working full time. And you've been able to win these awards. So well done on being able, I don't know how being able to balance, but being able to push in spite of, I'm sure, dealing with exhaustion and all these other challenges. But it got to a point where, as much as you were managing to carry both of them, where it now stands such that you are now full time working on Code One. So let's talk about that. How did that transition take place, and how does it feel to be doing that now? What are the challenges that you are now experiencing, or what are the opportunities that you are dealing with now, and how are you getting around the challenges, and how are you utilizing the opportunities of being able to now work full time on your holy discomfort?
It's very scary, what you call this. I'm not gonna lie.
Hmm.
I am what you call this. I am 6 months into it full time.
Hmm.
And when I
How
started,
did we
like,
get there? So how did we move from corporate to there? You were starting that story and I stopped you.
oh
So
yes.
I want you to get back there.
So I think, yeah, I was saying, I came back, what you call this, from my grand's funeral last year,
Hmm.
and what you call this, and I come back to some restructuring, what you call this. And when I come back, I'm conflicted because there was another opportunity that was presented within the business, which I could have
Hmm.
potentially taken if I wanted to stay in corporate. But I think, for me, what you call this, one of the biggest lessons also out of the exercise is being being able to, what you call this, have time, listen to your emotions and your
Hmm.
intuition above just what you call this praying about it, because
Hmm.
I know, like, even before I actually took the decision, what you call this, that okay, I'm going to step, I think I want to step into Konwana full time. I had
Hmm.
asked a couple of people close to me that this is what's on the table, what you call this, can you help me pray about this? And we're just praying that I make the
Hmm.
right decision at the time.
Hmm.
And the one morning, I think we spoke that morning, I woke
Hmm.
up feeling so emotional.
Hmm.
I felt so emotional, I cried. And at that instant, I what you call this, I made the decision, Uguti, I
Hmm.
think what you call this is the step, what you call this, that I need to take. And I also needed to be what you call this, to reflect in terms of what you call this, what the experience, what you call this, has been for me, and
Hmm.
what you call this, and whether it was what God intended me to do. Because sometimes we sit in fancy positions, we sit what you call
Hmm.
this in these roles based on comfort, and
Hmm.
we come out feeling so depleted emotionally. And
Hmm.
I think what you call this, that morning when I woke up feeling emotional, and when I made the decision, I said to myself, surely I don't think what you call this, this is what God intended of what you call this, of work for me.
Hmm.
And that day, I got into the office after being all emotional, because remember, we get attached to things, we get
Yeah.
attached to even the lifestyles that we live. So
Hmm.
I got into the office and I sent that email that what you call this, I have what you call this taken a decision, and
Mm,
this is the decision what you call this that I've taken. And I think for me also, coming from what you call this a black family where you are expected what you call this, you need to work, like
mm,
the phrase is often "Sudlala ngomsebenzi, umsebenzi
mm.
unqabile." That's what, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what our parents often say. And what you call this, I had to what you call this bring my dad as well on board. This is what I've decided.
Mm,
This is what I'm going to do. And what you call this, after a long time, and I understand le nto kakhonwana and what I'm trying to do, he said what you call this to me. I would rather have you what you call this do your own thing, what you call this as a daughter, and be labeled unemployed, than to have you sitting in a role and what you call this, your mental health is
mm,
depleting. And he said,
mm,
and on those grounds, because your mental health is important to me, I give you what you call this, my blessing to try this out. Not that
mm,
I needed, because I'm an adult now,
mm,
not that I
mm,
needed what you call this permission to continue, but I felt ukuthi it was quite important just to
mm.
communicate with the people around me what it means.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, and of course, now I want us to talk a little about the awards that you have won, because one moment this company was starting, and the next thing your work becomes international. I don't know if you want to share with us. In fact, I'd like you to. How did it become international to start with? I mean, it's what you were doing is amazing, and I think we need a lot more of it. I mean, really, I'm sure you know that what you are doing is beautiful, but it's only just the tip of the iceberg. If we are to, in fact, if I go back to your phrase, your quote that you give us, that we are capable of producing the Africa and the future that we want, it begins there. But you started, all right. You've rolled up your sleeves and you decided to start. And as big as your work is, there's so much more to be done. But you've managed to grab the attention of not only South Africa, but of Africa, of the world, to the point where you've made connections in various places. Silicon Valley, that's a big place for in the IT space. And you've ended up having this TEDx talk. So I'm just going to share a few of those awards, and here and there I want to find out how did that come about. And the first thing I'd like to find out is how did the TEDx talk come up? Because many people all over the world are dying to be there, to have made it onto that platform. So how did that come about? And while you talk, sorry, no, I'm just going to be off screen just to get my modem on, because we are
Okay.
approaching 8 o'clock, but I'm still here.
So I think the first TEDx talk that I listened to that caught my attention was in 2012. 2012, I listened to Brene Brown and the famous TED talk about courage and vulnerability. And after I had listened to that TED talk, what you call this, I had more interest to listen to more TEDx talks. And what you call this, the more I listened to what you call this other people's TEDx talk, I was like, actually, I deserve to be on the stage. Like not that I deserve, but I would love to be on the stage. What you call this one day. So that was like 2012 that I had the idea that you know what, like one day in my life, I would like to be on a TEDx stage. And 2019, I applied. So then I started listening to these talks and started doing research. How does one get into being on a TEDx platform? So 2019, what you call this, I found a local chapter, TEDx Saloon, they call them saloons in Joburg, that does TEDx talks. And then I applied and then I got rejected. I was like, okay. 2020 during COVID, I was like, I still want to do a TEDx talk. I'm going to apply again. Then I applied again 2020. I got rejected again. And I applied again on 2021, and when I was doing the application for 2021, something within me told me that you are ready now for that TEDx talk. And I didn't feel bad, what you call this, about the times where I was rejected in the past, because I was like, maybe I wasn't ready. But even when I did the application, I was like, I feel I'm ready to share my story to the world. And I got feedback. I think it was around December, to say we have accepted you to give a TEDx talk. So I think for me, and how I've always, what you call this, managed the things that I want to achieve, is just be deliberate, and what you call this, and chase that thing that you think you want to achieve. Because also believe in yourself, that you have the capability. Because I could have watched Brene Brown's TED talk and like, oh, it's beautiful, and think, I don't think I'll ever get to the point of, what you call this, of being in that stage. But I watched it. After I watched that TED talk, I was like, one day I want to be there, and I'll find out how to get there, and what you call this. And you may not get in the first time or the second time, just like me, because this was the third application I had done to actually speak at a TEDx platform.
Yeah, and I want to ask you that question, for, and again, for the benefit of all of us. What drives you? Because one, you see Brene Brown, and you feel that, I could do that. Many of us stop there. Many of us stop there. But you take the steps and you apply. And as it would happen, you get rejected. Then many of us would say, you know what, I wanted to, I applied, they didn't take me. And then you apply again, and they still don't take you. And you apply. I mean, what is the driving thing now that's within you? What are your thought processes that make you, one, if you're convinced of an idea, to pursue it to the point where we now have you on record as having been on TEDx Talks? What is that thing that is driving you? Or how do you think about it, to the point of not getting discouraged and you just walk away from it?
I think for me, like with anything I touch, it's always, what you call this, at the fundamental of, what you call this, that scripture that says, whatever your hand, what you call this, finds to do it with all your might. So at times abantu bathi ndiyazibaxa izinto, because if I really find a cause that's close to my heart, like ndiyazilahlela, I throw myself into it, and I really just go for it.
Wow. I love that. That if you find a cause close to your heart, then whatever your hand finds to do, that you do it with all your might. And of course, that thing that says, it feels God wants me to do this, and no doesn't mean like that's it, that's the end. That's for me. That's for many of us. Like, when you get a no, you turn and you walk away. All right. Whereas other people, and you now one of those where no, you see it as not yet. Not yet, not yet, you're not ready. And the way you phrase that for yourself, because you can feel rejection, and drop that idea, because, well, they didn't want me on to something else. But you've been able to do that. And then, of course, you've won a number of awards for the work that you've done. And I mean, I'd love to hear about a few of them. I mean, the Mail and Guardian 200 Young South Africans award. How did that come about? If you could just share a little bit about that. And the other one that I love is about the Women in STEM Awards. So we for those of us who want to hear more, Nolu has got a website as well, nolu.co.za. So just go and read more about what she's done and the awards that she has received for the work that she has done. But how did some of those awards come about?
So when you work, often you work with people, and you are often not the one to validate or vouch for your work, but what you call this, people will see, what you call this, potential or something great, and what you call this, they what you call this, I think a lot of these awards were actually often people, what you call this, putting me forward. So I got an email, what you call this, for example, for the Young 200, to say, what you call this, you've been nominated. And what you call this, yeah, I'm back in process. I was like, okay, I know I've been nominated, and they're hyping it up. They're doing, what you call this is the day of the awards and all of that. So a few days, I think, just before the awards,
Mm,
I get an email from what you call this one of the staff at Mail and Guardian to say, I'm doing a write up about you.
mm,
Can you please answer ABC? Then even at that time, I'm like, because at times I think we underestimate our work. Even at that time, I gave him this info that he needs, but nothing in my mind, what you call this, said, okay, you probably, what you call this, you've won the award. But
mm.
something is telling me, nobody winning, nobody winning, but I gave him the info. Then
Yeah.
even on the day of the awards, what you call this, I watched the awards because they said they doing what you call this the announcement. It was during COVID, so they couldn't do
It
it
was
face to
virtual.
face.
Mm,
So I
mm,
said to the kids, let's watch. And I'm like, I don't think like I'm just watching for the inspiration.
mm,
I don't think I've won in any case. And my son is
mm,
like, I'm sure what you call this, I'm sure you've won. And
mm,
then my son, what you call this, his what you call this, my biggest cheerleader, he starts WhatsApping people, please watch on TV. Mommy is what you call this is winning an award. I
mm,
haven't I haven't even won the award. So, but when I saw my name come up, then it's when it actually starts sinking in. It's quite humbling. Even worse
mm,
with the Womandla award, like
mm,
I was right in the middle of what you call this spring cleaning when they announced the awards. They said watch virtually. I said I'm not. I'm just going to switch on my laptop and continue do my cleaning. They
mm.
said the brief was that if what you call this, if you win, then we'll ask you. It was virtual as well. We'll ask you to switch your camera on,
Oh
and
boy.
then I'm busy cleaning because I'm like, no, dikape abanye, but I'm just what you call this. I'm just
Mm,
gonna watch the awards, and they say Nolu vuyo. And I
mm,
remember at the time we're in the kitchen with Aunt. Aunt is like, sis, they call your name, and
mm.
I quickly needed to
Get your face right.
I quickly needed to get my face right, but I think
Mm,
those are always humbling moments,
mm.
and what you
Yeah.
call this, and
Mm.
grounding moments, what you call this, moments that ground you above everything else.
Yeah, and that's really beautiful. And we want to take that moment here, even as we are now approaching the end, to honor you for those moments. You know, to join the rest of the world and South Africa. I mean, being among 200 young, influential people in South Africa, that's a big deal. If you look at the population of youth in South Africa. So, thank you for the great work that you have been doing. And I can only just watch and with anticipation what will happen now of Code One, seeing that you are now working on it full time. I'm really, really proud of you. Now, two things, and then we will wrap this up. The one is that you've been able then to sort of travel internationally, sharing with the work that you're doing with Code One. You are off to Kenya, Nairobi tomorrow, today. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Okay, so I think just to wrap it up
Mm,
quickly, when I realized that what you call this, you know what, actually the stuff, what you call this, that makes me come alive is work
mm,
that has a social impact. Then I went on to say, okay, like let me just research like what courses are there around social impact? Who are the key players, mainly in the social impact space around social entrepreneurship? Because
mm,
I've always believed, Bana, yes, what you call this, it's a business that I'm running, but it's a business with a social impact. So
yeah.
I don't necessarily refer to myself as an entrepreneur much, but I would rather refer to myself as a social, what you call this, entrepreneur, because
Mm,
I'm not I'm chasing the impact that I have or that we're
mm,
doing above profits.
yeah.
So then I
Mm,
was like, let me quickly just start researching. Then I came across what you call this a Miller Center of Social Entrepreneurship.
mm,
It's housed under Santa Clara University in Silicon Valley.
mm,
Then I look at the work that these guys are doing. Then I see these guys are what you call this mentoring and accelerating African based, what you call this social entrepreneurs. Then my question was like, how do you, and I look at the process and how they do it. Then my
mm,
question is like, okay, how do you capacitate and mentor African based social entrepreneurs and you're in
mm,
Silicon Valley with no African context? Then I
yeah.
reach out to them. I'm like, I'd love to be part of your program as a mentor, because I believe what you call this, you mentor what you call this South African social entrepreneurs, and I think you need an African voice.
Yeah.
And those these guys come back to me. I think we did 2 interviews with Miller Center, with what you call this very old guys from Santa Clara. Then I'm like, hey, when I was about to go to the interview, I don't even know what I'm doing, but let's go into the interview and let's learn about what you call
Yeah.
this, what those guys do. And after we had done what you call this, the interviews, the guys were like, "Would love to have you on board. What you call this as a mentor." Now, this is a university in Silicon Valley that is capacitating African-based entrepreneurs. I'm like, hey, but you need an African voice. So I come on board as a mentor, and we journey on this beautiful journey where I get exposed to what you call this food and safety enterprises in Nigeria, where I start working in Kenya, what you call this mentoring in a social entrepreneur that's formalizing the informal daycares. So she will take abamama abagcina abantwana elokishini and formalize that into daycares and give them standards and all of that. Then we worked with them. Then I was like, yo, there's a lot that I'm doing. I'm not coping. I said to Miller Center, I need to take a break. I'm not coping. I'm not going to be part of the next cohort. And then early this year, they say, hi, Nolu, da, 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 da. We were wondering if you can please come back into the cohort, because we've got a lot of what you call this African social entrepreneurs in the cohort, and we would like to have more local voices. So they pay you, they will take like an African mentor, pair it with a Silicon Valley mentor, and together you work as a team to help what you call this organization. And then we've never met in person. Then they were like, there's a conference in Kenya that we're coming to, and we're doing a couple of workshops for some of our alumni in Kenya, and would love to meet you in person. And that's where I'm going for the week.
Oh, wow, wow, wow. Wonderful. All the best with that. And thank you, for representing us, in all of these places, the African voice in all of these places. And I'm truly, like I said, I admire your work, Nolu. I think you're doing amazing work and in the right space, because technology is really where we actually need to play a little bit louder. I then want you to speak to especially a young woman who's here on this platform now live, but those that will listen to it later. But also all of us have given birth. We are raising young women who has a dream. They have, like you have had. They feel strongly about something, but they are still young. They are either at school or they are still within their career or pursuing their career. They have a dream. Words of encouragement, motivation to them, so that they may continue to pursue and to live out that thing, which, as you say, gives them no sleep, or wakes up early in the morning and all they can think about is that thing. Any words of encouragement for them?
I think what you call this, the words of encouragement, what you call this, for me is for them to stay true to their course, and consistency. Like, consistency is key. So when I say consistency is key, it's not about, oh, I'm feeling good today, therefore I'll work on Kongwana. You work on the things that you need to work on, and on the things that you believe, even what you call this, even on your bad days, even on the days
You
where you
don't feel
wake
like
up, you don't feel like it, but you
it.
still wake up and show up. I think that's important, because if you're not gonna keep that consistency, if you're gonna say, oh, today is my bad day, and therefore I'm not gonna show up, you're gonna fall behind.
Yeah, yeah. And the enemy is gonna give you more bad days. They're gonna give you more bad days because he knows that when you're having a bad day, you do not work. But if you push, and this sort of echoes what we spoke about last week as well. Show up regardless. Show up regardless of how you are feeling. Show up regardless of the fear that's bubbling in your spirit. And the more you do that, the better you become at it. Okay, now here at the Theatre of Grace, we believe and we push ourselves. One, we are thankful for the grace of God in our lives. All right. And what we've been talking about today, and your work and your career could not have happened without God, could not have happened without Him, and His grace upon your life. At the same time, your work is directly, we talk here about recipients of grace, which is ourselves. We also talk about dispensers of grace. I mean, thank you for being such a huge dispenser in such a critical segment of our community, i.e., children, but also trying to get us on par with the rest of the world in terms of technology. So may that work grow, because when you do that, you become a dispenser of grace in various communities, in various homes. You know, I watched some of your videos of these young people who are so eloquent and talking about what they are able to do with technology. So we thank God for the work that you do, and we ask that you would continue to be the grace dispenser. But there are people, as we close, if there are people in your life who would have been such an influence for you, you know, from your family to friends to people at work, that God has used to sort of put you, because He doesn't come down and dispense grace directly, all right? But He uses people, He uses individuals. So who are some of the people in your life that you would like to honor? I know Gogo is one of them, and I don't want to get you emotional, but I know she is. But who are the people that you would like to honor as we bring this to an end, that have perhaps played that role in your life, that have allowed themselves to be used by God to bring about whatever it is that they brought about in your life?
I think for me, it's yes, it's definitely what you call this Gogo. In as much as what you call this, she didn't get formal education, but what you call this, she was a visionary. She could see something, and she should always be there to support us. And I think for me, what you call this, the second person is my dad. Like, I think the resilience, what you call this, of not being scared to knock at doors, to show up in spaces. And I think what you call this, that resilience, what you call this, is him. Even me, what you call this, going after rejection, for example, for the TED
Yeah,
thing, because he'll
yeah.
go like, okay, they rejected you this time, apply next year. When our
Uh,
application is opening next year,
mm,
apply next year. So I think what you call this, he gave me that
mm.
strong sense of resilience.
We thank God for Gog, even in her absence. I had the privilege to be present when she was being laid to rest. We thank God for parents and grandparents who believe in us even after, you know, beyond us. And of course, that Gqadu, I can see him saying that to you. You know, giving you that stubborn streak that allows you and pushes you, even after somebody has said no. If you believe that this is where you want to be, to continue to push. I'm going to ask you to have your closing remarks then as we bring this broadcast to close. But before you do so, I just want to make a couple of announcements. Two announcements, ladies. We'll see again next Sunday. We are back here at 7 o'clock. But we meet every Wednesday morning, 4:30 a.m. Wednesdays is prayer and fasting days. So we pray and we fast and we bring our bold prayers to God. And so we meet every Wednesday, 4:30 a.m. We're having morning devotion, and then the fasting day continues. We also meet at lunchtime for prayer every Wednesday. But the two announcements, one is that we are finalizing now. At the end of the month, we will close the call for donations for the Komani project. And many of you know that there's been flooding in Queenstown and people are destitute. And so we, as the Theatre of Grace, are calling for donations nationally to be able to go and support that project. So thank you so much to the people that have been able to contribute. We've raised a fair amount of money, but we need much more. So if you are listening and you would like to know more about it, just drop me an inbox. But we have been posting it in the various Theatre of Grace platforms. We're collecting up until the end of the month, and then we will be in Queenstown to distribute that which you have given us to distribute. And then last but not least, I want to make an announcement. We made it last week, right? But I'm just giving you a little bit more information now in terms of that. I hope you can see that. There it is. All right. It's confirmed that the Theatre of Grace conference is taking place from the 26th to the 29th of October. We are in Johannesburg. I know we wanted to go to Durban, but for Durban, you need 2-3 years to organize because they do not have enough venues to accommodate the number that we have become. So we are in Johannesburg, in Benoni, in a conference place called the Lake. I think that's the name, but we'll give you more information on that. But for now, save the date, block it. People have been asking, block it, 26 to 29 October. Also, I can confirm now that registration is 700 Rand. We'll talk about the other things, all right? I didn't want to bring all of that information all at once, but in the course of this week, latest next week, we'll be able to give you more information about registration, the registration process for the Theatre of Grace conference. So I'm just telling you now, if you want to be at the conference, many people have been, Vulan, siyavula. So, but when put your registration aside in the meantime, so that the minute we open, you are ready to register. Nolu, I want to honor you, Sisi. I want to celebrate you. I want to thank you for coming to the platform to share with us what God has been able to achieve through your life, through the skill that He has given you, from directing you to IT, and then giving you no rest while you were working and growing and getting your expertise, but to actually take it and expand it to the place where it is now going, has gone. International. May Code Ngwana continue to grow, and may you as a person, as a professional, continue to also just flourish, because the bigger you become, the bigger, the more young people you are able to reach, and the bigger the impact that you are able to have in Africa. And we as Africa absolutely need more and more people like you, and more women like you, because there's something about women that tends to want to better other people's lives when we do taste success. So I want to thank you. I want to bless you, and all the best with your trip to Kenya. And may you continue to just keep touching lives. So as somebody's saying here in the group, keep on flying the African flag high, Sisi. We are right behind you. We are right behind you, celebrating you and praying for you and for your growth. So I'm going to give you an opportunity now to have your closing remarks.
Thanks, SB.
Mm.
I think what you call this, before I leave you guys, we often don't achieve the things that we want to achieve because we're filled with worry. And I want to leave you with the scripture that says, what you could call this, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I'm your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold your righteous right hand.
Thank you. There we go. Fear not. Fear not. I will strengthen you and I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. That's a beautiful place to end it for this week, ladies. All the best as we pursue all that God has placed in our lives this week. And if you have, as I said earlier, if you have been blessed by this conversation, tag someone, share with someone so that they too can come and benefit. Right, I'm going to just close with a word of prayer. And thereafter, ladies, have a blessed Sunday. And yes, indeed, have a blessed week until we meet again. Dear Lord, thank you. Thank you for Nolu. Thank you for her life. Thank you for the people in her life who believe so strongly in her that she was able to be where she is and to do what she does. Thank you, Lord, for the opportunities that you have given her. Thank you for the promotions that you have given her. Thank you for driving her and opening the doors for her to be able to step out and now impact Africa one child at a time. All we can just say is pray that you might continue to open more doors. Lord, projects such as these require funding and lots of it so that she can be able to achieve what she does and reach the young people. Expand as I know she wants to. We want this project not only to be in Gauteng, but to expand to all the provinces of South Africa and indeed to the rest of Africa. And for that to happen, we need you to open doors for her. So I ask that you would continue to bless her and to open the right doors for her. But Lord, there are many of us here on this platform who are also pursuing developmental projects. They start with us as families, they expand to the immediate neighborhood, they expand to our cities, our provinces, and we wish for those projects to expand beyond our cities, our provinces, to expand beyond our countries to the rest of Africa. What we want, dear Lord, is to allow your glory to shine through us. What we want is to bless humanity through us. And so we ask that you would bless each and every person's project here that is also pursuing something like what Nolu is pursuing. Thank you for being with us here. I pray that you will be with us now as we go to our various, go about our various projects this week. Thank you, Lord, for the privilege of prayer. We ask all these things in your wonderful name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. And of course, my screen is off because Escom has switched me off, but I believe that I'm still visible. Thank you, everybody. Have a blessed week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, how to end the broadcast? Okay.